The mahogany walls of Phillips and Associates law office seemed to close in around me as I sat listening to my mother's well-being raid. My stepbrother James lounged in his Italian leather chair, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. He already knew what was coming. He'd made sure of it. And to my beloved son James, Mr. Phillips continued, adjusting his reading glasses, I leave my entire estate, including all properties, investments, and liquid assets, valued at approximately $14 million. The words hit me like physical blows. Our family home in Beverly Hills, the vacation house in Aspen, the investment portfolio my grandfather had spent decades building. Everything was going to James. And to my daughter Olivia. Mr. Phillips paused, glancing at me with what might have been pity. I leave my personal jewelry collection and photo albums. James didn't even try to hide his laugh. Well, that's settled then, he said, standing and straightening his designer suit. I'll have my people contact you about transferring the assets. I sat there numb. 10 years. That's how long James and his father had been in our lives. 10 years of watching them slowly sink their claws into my mother after my father's death. 10 years of being pushed aside, labeled as difficult and ungrateful whenever I questioned their motives. There must be some mistake, I managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. Grandpa's trust fund, the business. Mom promised they would stay in the family. I am family, James replied smoothly, more family than you ever were. Who took care of her during her illness while you were off finding yourself in Europe? I was doing my master's degree. I shot back, anger finally breaking through the shock. A degree she wanted me to get, before you two showed up and turned her against me. Mr. Phillips cleared his throat uncomfortably. Miss Sullivan, I understand this is difficult, but your mother was of sound mind when she made these changes to her will. It's all quite legal. Of course it was legal. James's father had been a lawyer before his convenient heart attack 2 years ago. They'd known exactly what they were doing, slowly isolating my mother, convincing her that her only daughter was selfish and undeserving. I grabbed my bag and stood up, fighting back tears. When can I collect the jewelry and photos? Your stepbrother's assistant will contact you, Mr. Phillips replied, not meeting my eyes. I walked out without another word, ignoring James's satisfied gaze following me. The bright California sunshine felt wrong, offensive almost, as I made my way to my car. How could it be such a beautiful day when my entire world had just crumbled? My phone buzzed. A text from James. Don't forget to clear out your old room by Friday. I'm having the house renovated. Friday, 3 days to clear out 26 years of memories. I gripped my steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, remembering all the little moments that had led to this. Mom pulling away after James and his father moved in. The missed calls when I was studying abroad. The way they convinced her not to attend my graduation, claiming she was too weak to travel. She hadn't been too weak to attend James's parties though, or his endless business functions. I drove to my small apartment in Silver Lake, a world away from the Beverly Hills mansion I'd grown up in. The trust fund that was supposed to help me start my own business had been drained months ago, redirected to James's new investment venture. I'd been forced to take a job as a junior marketing executive, watching my dreams of entrepreneurship fade away. The next morning, I arrived at my childhood home armed with moving boxes and emotional armor. The housekeeper, Maria, let me in with tears in her eyes. Miss Olivia, she whispered, glancing around nervously. There's something you should know. Your mother, before in her last days, she was different, confused. She kept asking for you, but Mr. James said you were too busy to visit. My heart clenched. What? I called every day. They told me she was too tired to talk. Maria nodded sagely. And there's something else. Your grandfather's study. Mr. James had it cleaned out yesterday. Everything gone to storage. Grandpa's study. The room that had been sealed since his death 5 years ago. Mom had always said we would open it together, that there were things I needed to know when the time was right. Which storage facility? I asked, but Maria shook her head. They didn't tell me. But Miss Olivia, she hesitated, then pressed something into my hand. I found this when they were clearing things out. I think you should have it. It was a key, old and brass, with a small tag attached. The handwriting was my grandfather's, for Olivia, when the time comes. There's more, Maria continued, her voice barely audible. Your grandfather's old lawyer, Mr. Harrison, he's been trying to reach you. Said it's about a letter. A letter? My grandfather had been a careful, methodical man. He built his real estate empire from nothing, keeping meticulous records of everything. If he'd left a letter, I hugged Maria goodbye, knowing she would probably be fired if James discovered she helped me. Then I drove straight to Harrison and Wells' law office, the firm my grandfather had used for 40 years before James's father convinced Mom to switch to Phillips and Associates. The office was in an old building downtown, nothing like the sleek modern structure where James's lawyers worked. Mr. Harrison was in his 70s now, but his eyes were sharp as ever when I walked in. "Olivia Sullivan," he said warmly, standing to greet me. "I've been hoping you'd come. I heard about the will reading yesterday. Terrible business, just terrible." "Maria said something about a letter?" He nodded gravely, going to an old safe in the corner. "Your grandfather left this with me 15 years ago, with strict instructions. It was only to be opened if your mother's estate passed to someone outside the direct Sullivan bloodline." My hands trembled as I took the sealed envelope. The paper was yellowed with age, but my name was clearly visible in my grandfather's bold handwriting. "He knew," I whispered. "Somehow he knew something like this might happen." "Your grandfather was a very shrewd man," Mr. Harrison said quietly. "He understood people, their motivations, their weaknesses. Read it carefully, Olivia. Very carefully." I broke the seal with shaking fingers and unfolded the letter. The first line made my breath catch. "My dearest Olivia, if you're reading this, then I was right to be worried about your mother's trusting nature." My hands trembled as I read my grandfather's words. "My dearest Olivia, if you're reading this, then I was right to be worried about your mother's trusting nature. She always saw the best in people, a beautiful quality, but one that makes her vulnerable to those who would take advantage of her kindness. I've spent my life building not just a fortune, but a legacy. Your father understood this before his passing. He knew, as I do, that you are the one who carries the true spirit of the Sullivan name. What you're about to read will change everything. But first, you need to find something. The key I left for you. Ask Maria about it. Once you have it, go to the basement of our first property, 1879 Grove Street. Look for the false wall behind the old filing cabinets. Everything you need to know is there. Trust no one until you've seen it all. With love and faith in you, Grandpa William." I looked up at Mr. Harrison, who was watching me intently. "I have the key," I said. "Maria gave it to me this morning." He nodded, unsurprised. "Your grandfather trusted Maria completely. She's been with the family for 30 years. 1879 Grove Street, the first building my grandfather had ever bought, the foundation of his real estate empire. It was a small office building downtown, one that James had been trying to sell since getting power of attorney over Mom's affairs." "Mr. Harrison," I asked, "did you know what was in that false wall?" He shook his head. "Your grandfather never told me specifics. He only said that it would protect the family legacy from vultures." I drove to Grove Street immediately, my mind racing. The building was empty now, waiting for the sale James had arranged to close next week. My key still worked on the front door. They hadn't changed the locks yet. The basement was dark and musty, filled with decades of old files and furniture. I found the filing cabinets exactly where I remembered them from childhood visits with Grandpa. It took all my strength to move them aside, revealing a section of wall that looked slightly different from the rest. My hands shook as I fitted the key into what looked like an old electrical panel. It clicked, and a small door swung open. Inside was a safe, but not just any safe. It was a state-of-the-art digital model, disguised to look vintage. Next to it was an envelope with a single word: "Remember." I knew instantly what it meant. Every Sunday when I was little, Grandpa would teach me about the business. He had a favorite saying, one he made me repeat at the end of each lesson: "Legacy before profit, family before fortune, truth before comfort." I typed in those words and the safe clicked open. Inside were 3 things: a thick folder labeled True Holdings, a USB drive, and another letter. The folder contained documents that made my hands tremble. Deeds, contracts, bank statements, all showing a completely separate business empire my grandfather had built in secret. Properties, investments, and offshore accounts that no one knew about, not even my mother. The letter explained everything. "Olivia, what you found is your true inheritance, the heart of our family's legacy. While everyone focused on the visible Sullivan empire, I spent decades building this shadow portfolio. It's worth more than twice what anyone knows about. I put everything in a special trust, one that only activates if someone tries to disinherit you from the main estate. Your father helped me set this up before he died. We both knew you were the one to carry on our real legacy. The USB drive contains all the passwords, account numbers, and instructions you'll need. It also has evidence, years of documentation showing every questionable deal, every manipulated document that might be used against our family. You are now the sole owner of Sullivan Shadow Holdings, a company worth over $30 million. Be wise with this power. Use it not for revenge, but for justice. Love, Grandpa. I sat on the dusty basement floor, tears streaming down my face. All those Sunday lessons, the special projects he'd given me, the way he'd insisted I learn every detail of the business. He'd been preparing me for this moment. My phone buzzed. A text from James. The house renovations are starting early. You have until tomorrow morning to get your things. I smiled, feeling a strange calm settle over me. Standing up, I gathered everything from the safe and drove straight back to Mr. Harrison's office. The next morning, I walked into Phillips and Associates without an appointment. James was there with his lawyer, probably plotting their next property sale. You can't just barge in here, James started, but I cut him off. Actually, I can. Especially since I now own this building. His face went pale. What are you talking about? I placed a document on the table. Sullivan Shadow Holdings just purchased the mortgage on this property. We'll be raising the rent, by the way, significantly. Sullivan Shadow. What? James grabbed the paper, his hands shaking. Oh, and we'll also be calling due the loans on the Beverly Hills house, the Aspen property, and all other real estate currently held in your name. You have 48 hours to explain where the money from Mom's accounts really went. His face turned from white to green. You can't. Those properties are mine now. Actually, I smiled, pulling out more documents. They were used as collateral for loans you took out. Loans now owned by my company. Did you really think Grandpa would leave everything unprotected? Mr. Phillips cleared his throat nervously. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. Oh, we will, I assured him. Along with the unusual way Mom's will was changed while she was on heavy medication, Maria has provided a very interesting statement about that. James slumped in his chair, the arrogance finally draining from his face. What do you want? Everything back in the family trust. Every property, every investment, every dollar you stole. You have 1 hour to sign the papers Mr. Harrison is preparing. And if I refuse? I pulled out a final folder. Then these documents showing how you embezzled from Mom's accounts go to the FBI. Your choice. 30 minutes later, I watched James sign away everything he had tried to steal. Mr. Phillips witnessed it, his hands trembling as he stamped each page. You'll never get away with this, James hissed as he signed the final document. I already have, I replied calmly. You should have learned more about the family you tried to steal from. Grandpa always said knowledge was the greatest inheritance. As I left the office, I called Maria. You can keep your job at the house, I told her. In fact, you're getting a raise. And James? He'll be moving out by tomorrow. Your mother would be proud, she said softly. And your grandfather, he always knew you were the one. I drove to Grove Street one last time, standing in front of the building where it had all started. The key felt warm in my hand as I remembered all those Sunday lessons with Grandpa. Legacy before profit, I whispered his old saying. Family before fortune, truth before comfort. My phone buzzed. A message from Mr. Harrison. The trusts are all restored. Everything back in the Sullivan family name. What now? I smiled, thinking of all the plans Grandpa and I had discussed over the years. Affordable housing projects, community development, using our fortune to build something meaningful. Now, I typed back, we do what Sullivans have always done. We build. We grow. We make things better. A week later, I sat in what had once again become my family home, surrounded by the photos and memories James had tried to throw away. Mom's jewelry glittered in its cases, restored to its proper place. But more importantly, her legacy, our family's true legacy, was secure. In my grandfather's study, now restored to its former glory, I found one final note hidden in his old desk. Olivia. Power isn't about what you own. It's about what you choose to do with it. I built an empire in the light and another in the shadows, not for profit, but for protection. Protection of our values, our true purpose. You won today not because of the money I left you, but because of what you learned. Patience, wisdom, and the understanding that true wealth isn't measured in dollars. Your mother's heart was too kind to see deception. Your father's life was too short to teach you everything, so I had to prepare you in my own way. You are now the guardian of not just a fortune, but a legacy. Use it wisely. Build something meaningful. And remember, there will always be those who want to take what we've built. That's why we must be smarter, work harder, and never forget what matters most. Legacy before profit, family before fortune, truth before comfort. All my love, Grandpa. I folded the note carefully and placed it in my desk. Outside, the California sun was setting, casting long shadows across the garden where I had played as a child. Tomorrow, I would begin the real work, using our fortune the way Grandpa had always intended. James and his kind thought wealth was something you could simply take. They never understood that real legacy, true wealth, was something built over generations, protected by wisdom and used for purpose. They saw only the fortune and the light. They never suspected the power that waited in the shadows, guarded by a grandfather's love and wisdom, waiting for the right moment to restore justice. Sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't what's written in a will. Sometimes it's the lessons learned, the wisdom passed down, and the strength to protect what matters most.